Looks like we're live. Let me get this microphone out of my face here. Let's see. What's going on, Steven? What's up, Clint? It's running a little late there getting started. I'm trying to add figure out how to add this camera and to the screen here. And let's see. To show comments instead of that, but it's reversed, and I'm trying to figure out how to. Well, that maximizes it. I didn't want to do that. Let's minimize it. Well, God bless. I didn't. Damn sure didn't want to do that. The Lord have mercy. Uh, crazy. But it's not showing the chat, and I can't reverse the image on it. So it's going to be something I'm going to have to work on, I guess, this week. I just got that in this evening. So, but trying to add it to stage. I guess I'm going to have to use another custom layout, but it's still not working. Let's see what. Yeah, see, I was trying to, just show the chat, but it's just showing a bunch of white. It's not real, and I'd like to be able to do a portrait, but it looks like a bunch of white. It's not real sharp. So, yeah, that's not going to work. Anyway, we'll get it figured out one of these days. But I'd like to increase the size of the chat here, so I'm gonna have to get back with StreamYards, I guess, and see if we can get it enlarged. That's just not enough chat. It's only you can only see the last 3 chats, and I'd like to see chat take up half the screen. But it's something we're gonna have to work on with StreamYards, or there's supposedly some way to do it with OBS, but I just don't want to get into all that and get that crazy and sophisticated with it. And I don't know, the OBS I'm gonna have to use for streaming anyway, so I may end up just doing it. Let me say the howdies. What's going on, Steven? Good to see you, brother. What's up, Clint? Let me get these links shared. And up a keg in the house. What's going on, Jason? How's it going, brother? Cave Daddy here on time. I'm doing good, brother. I was supposed to cut grass too, and I didn't. I said, hell with it. I stayed up, and I had the day off, so we stayed up late last night, and we slept in the day. And I said, maybe I'll cut it tomorrow. Hopefully it'll rain. I won't have to. Put it off a little bit longer. Still having trouble making your shine taste good. Well, it's probably all about cuts, and let me share these links and we'll talk about it. Going on, O'Shane? Good to see you, brother. Hopefully you got everything straightened out and feeling better and doing good. And everybody dealing with all the issues. I know O'Shane had a lot put on his plate there at once. One thing happened after another. That's a pretty tough situation. I kind of went through something similar myself, so I know how it is, brother. Yeah, sleep is good, man, especially when you get old like me. So I don't know. Well, that's crazy. All right, so I got rid of that. All right, let me see here. Let me get my link and see how many times I'm going to be able to share this week. Again, I'm going to have to jump through hoops to even share it properly. I know. I don't like having to do all that, but they don't leave us much choice. I think I noticed that Damon posted a link to another podcast earlier today, and he had to do it the same way with just a link. And I don't think you could even click on that one. I don't know. But yeah, it's something Facebook's doing that's changed things a little bit on us. But I figured to work around, so we'll work around it and just keep riding on trucking. It ain't gonna stop us. But I'm glad I figured to work around, man. It kind of simple, really. But so Clint's calling. I don't know what's about. Hold on. Can y'all see my face? Can you see my picture here? Clint's having trouble seeing me. Can y'all see me okay? Because I did do something with the cameras, so maybe the camera's not set up right or something. Can y'all see me? Okay, there you are now. Wait a minute. You can hear me or see me? I can see you and hear you now. Okay. Down there, Ocean's back. All right. All right. Let me hang up. All right. I don't know what. Clint wasn't able to see me. I'm like, man, tripping me out. I thought something happened again. I thought maybe my mic was muted. That's the first thing I looked at. Thought maybe it's muted like it was last week. All right. We'll get it all figured out here. I'm like, damn, Clint, you're commenting, surely God. So we'll get you figured out, Jason. You'll be the first we deal with. It's all about the cuts and what you start out with. So if like mash and everything else, like computers, garbage in, garbage out. So if it's not fermenting well and you don't get a good ferment and it tastes like shit or you scorch it, sometimes it's hard to get rid of the badness. So we can start from the very get go and we'll figure out what the problems are. Everybody can see me okay. Good deal. What's going on, JJ? Thank you. That's awesome. That's good to hear, Gnarly. I tell you what, back in the old days, and I mean old days, when distilling first originated, it was mostly women that made all the beer and the meads and the wines and all these things way back when. That's something they did in the kitchen, and even distilling was something that monks and stuff and women a lot of times did that men didn't. So I'd say early on it was a lot of women that pretty much started a lot of this. What's going on, Jim? Good to see you, brother. I ain't seen you in a while. How you been, man? What's going on, Mikey? All right, let me get these links shared. We'll figure out what Jason's got going on and try to answer some questions tonight. I know, man. I woke up this morning to think, man, is JJ gonna make it tonight? I mean, he's been missing a few Saturdays, but maybe he can make it tonight. From Turkey, awesome, brother. It's good to see you. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely help you with suggestions, but I don't know what you have available there. But we definitely, we know how important the yeast are. Yeah, I know what you meant, brother. But let me get these links shared, and we'll definitely dive into Jason and your question about yeast and stuff. Oh, that is right, isn't it? I wasn't on last Saturday. You missed the Saturday before, so I don't want to hear it. All right, let me get these links shared. Oh, I about copied the wrong damn one again. That would have been stupid. That'd have been bad. Almighty man, I tell you what, you wouldn't think I'd done this for a while. Let's see if it's going to post right. No, I still got to jump through the same damn hoops again. Oh, they didn't figure it out. I thought they figured it out because they blocked a part of it. I still have to jump through an extra hoop now, but I still got figured out Facebook. Let's try. I'm still able to post like I used to, but it does now I'm gonna have to jump through 3 hoops, but that's all right. Can't stop me. That does it. Oh yeah, they can't stop us, can they? Let's see. Let me get the rest of these put up here before I get out of whack here. They won't let me do a bunch, so I have to try to do some of the larger groups first and then the smaller groups second. And a lot of the smaller groups, the same people are in a lot of them, you know. They just create their own group, and I don't have a problem with that. You know, I'm glad, you know, a lot of people like to have their own group and have a little bit of control over what goes on and don't necessarily like what's happening in some of the other groups that they're also in. But I try to spread it out to groups that may not have a lot of the same people. So, and that's also why we get a lot of people in from, you know, Turkey and different countries and stuff, because there's some of these pages that they'll post some moonshine stuff, and then the next thing you know, they're posting about, you know, just totally off topic stuff. It's just nothing to do with beer, wine, liquor, anything, you know, even remotely. So I continue to post in those, hoping we can, you know, get some people out of there and get into some groups that are a little more relevant, you know, not better or worse. I'm not going to, you know, say anything like that, but just groups that have post stuff that's relevant, right? You know, because a lot of these, and some of them are pretty good sized groups. So I want to try to appeal to a large crowd. So I'll try to post to a lot of different groups from different origins and stuff. But it's taken me a little bit longer now to do than before, and that I don't like. It's because before it was my worst part of the whole show was having to sit down and post these links and go through all that, and they've done nothing but make it harder, and it just yeah, it sucks. But we'll get through it. All right, let's see. I'm in Rock. I already got that posted. So yeah, it's and I don't know why I'm having to click all these things just to get it on there, you know. Should just go right on. Jump through hoops to get it done. It's silly. Don't like it. Takes a lot more time than before. And I'm going to sit here and ramble on until I do, because I hate sitting here quiet, having dead air. So I'll sit. Something we can talk about also is this week, the Fifth Circuit Appeals Court. Now, I heard it was in the Fifth Circuit Court. So when I quoted Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan, and Tennessee, I thought that was just the Fifth Circuit. It's the Fifth Circuit Appeals, which is a totally different court that covers Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. I'm pretty sure. But anyway, there was a case earlier out of Louisiana that a guy said it, you know, got caught, I guess, distilling, and they were questioning the stuff he was buying, saying he was buying it to distill, and they didn't actually even catch him distilling. They just tried to get him on buying parts and stuff that were intended for distilling and materials and supplies, I guess maybe even grains and stuff. But anyway, so they went to court over it, and he fought back, and he said that, they were violating his constitutional rights. So he won that case, and then the government appealed it to the Fifth Circuit Appeals Court, which went to the Fifth Circuit Appeals Court. I didn't know it was that. I didn't know it was the appeals court. I just thought it's the Fifth District, and it was Fifth Circuit. So there's a difference between the Fifth District and the Fifth Circuit. So that's why I got Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, and Michigan, and I thought it was Fifth District when it was Fifth Circuit Appeals. Anyway, confusing as hell, I know. But so the appeals court heard it on the government's appeal, and they upheld it. So a lot of people are asking what exactly does that mean? Because, and I'm not going to put this out there as any kind of attorney or anything like that. I'm not an attorney. This is 100% based on what I know up to now and what I've read. So don't take any of it to be 100% fact and irrefutable. But it's my understanding that because the Fifth Appeals Court, because an appeals court deemed it unconstitutional along with the original court, that at this point it will either take a Supreme Court decision. Now, if we have any real attorneys on there or constitutional professionals that know all about the Constitution, please chime in. But from my understanding, it will take a Supreme Court decision or a new law in Congress to change it from this. So basically, and a lot of people are saying, well, it's still going to be based on states. I don't think it will be based on states, because once something's deemed unconstitutional or not, then that means that it's not a state issue anymore, because the state laws can't supersede the Constitution. Now, a lot of people refer to marijuana laws. Well, there's nothing constitutional about growing marijuana or making it recreational or anything to do with marijuana. That still falls within the states, even though the government has it as legal, because they've never ruled on that as a constitutional issue, right? So, and a lot of people are saying, and myself included, that it's going to be a lot like marijuana. It's just going to be a state thing. But because they deemed it a constitutional issue, that may change a lot of things. And see, states' laws can't supersede. Now, I can't see what y'all commenting because I'm still sharing these, but state laws can't supersede what is deemed constitutional or not. So, when it comes, that's like a lot of these gun laws that states are trying to change and make new gun laws. Well, they can't do that because there's a constitutional Second Amendment that, that they have to beat or trump, and they are not able to do that. So, I will say in some of these videos, the picture's not looking all that great. The video, I just saw one. Maybe it was just that group. Yeah, that was just that. There it is. It looks better there. So I don't know, but what does this mean for us? It means that locally, a lot of things haven't changed. I'm sure a lot of the police are still going to enforce it as they always have. They're going to still try to take you to court. But at least now, when you do go to court, you have what's called a precedent, which is already, it means it's a law established in another court, and they rule this way on it. So a lot of future courts will rule the same way based on prior precedent, right? So there is a precedent now, and I'm pretty sure that the Supreme Court's going to have to do something to overturn it, or they're going to have to rewrite the laws to establish it or change it or create rules. I think that now that it's been deemed constitutional, I think a lot of states are going to be like, okay, well, you're going to have to register, your steel, or like some places require you to register a firearm, or, at least go through background checks, and, they may be able to get by with something like that, possibly. But still, it's going to be something that we do have a fighting leg to stand on and say, we got all these judges that have said, there was three judges that heard this case in the appeals court. So it wasn't just one judge that ruled on it. There was three different judges that ruled on it, right? So and one of them even commented on that he looked forward, is talking about, people will have the freedom to do things in their own home. What they based a lot of it on was the government was saying that it was just their argument was it was just too easy to evade taxes if you were able to make it at home. And the defense argued that, well, how's that different than any other home business or hobby income business that you have at home, that you run out of the home? Any home business, that you run out of the home is going to be easy, and damn, they didn't. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Daggone them. They didn't let me share it half as many as they usually am. But let me rewind here and see what everybody's saying here. Let me rewind here. So yeah, this was actually wasn't this law actually went back to 1866 or 86 or something like that. So yeah, it was a 150-year-old law. So it was crazy, but yeah, it so what kind of yeast are you using over there in Turkey? We can jump in here. Well, I think it depends. If they're talking about maturation in a barrel, or to me, I've always heard, aging in a barrel gives whiskey 60 to 80% of its flavor. And I would have to say that's true tasting a whiskey after it comes out of a barrel versus the white dog before it went in. Now, maturation and barrel aging should be considered two different things. To me, maturation is more like esterification, right? Like the changing of flavors, where the acids and combine with the esters to esterify into different phenols and flavors and flavonoids. So and they combine with the oils and the acids to make these create different flavors. So, but that has nothing to do with the barrel at all. So maturation to me is more of the esterification process. Whereas, if you combine that with the barrel and the flavor that the barrel adds, easy 60 to 80%, maturation and barrel aging would add to that flavor for sure. But a lot of people say barrel adds 60 to 80. I would say 80 may be a bit much, but it is substantial what the barrel adds to it and the flavor that it gives. But I think a lot of that has to do with esterification as well, and it's just not given credit. They just say, oh, it's just all barrel aging 60 to 80, and they try to lump that in. They never mention anything about maturation or esterification. So I think it's a combination that would make it 60 to 80 for sure. If they add if they add esterification and barrel, what the barrel adds, yeah, I would say so for sure. What's going on, Mr. Kenny Parker? Good to see you, brother. Mash Brothers in the house. But we will get back to Jason. What's going on with your liquor, brother? Comment. Let us know. It may be a cut thing, or is your mashes just not doing well? What we mashing in? What we got going on, man? I've been guilty of that before. I'd say, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into flavor. Yeast. Of course, what you start with, grains, is definitely, going to have the biggest impact on what your distillate is, whether it's a brandy or a grain or, a rye. Adds a lot. So certainly the ingredients, would have to be one of the most contributing factors in a final flavor, unless you just run it through a column at 192 or 6, proof, and just strip everything out of it. But still, it's going to have some unique differences, but it's just not going to have, a lot of flavor differences. But, there is a lot that goes into the final flavor. Where can you order moonshine? You're in Portland. Just go to the liquor store, man. You should be able to get some Old Smoky or something out of there. I'm not sure if some of the legal distillers here are able to ship yet. You just have to get with them, Tracy, and some of the other ones that are now legal. May be able to ship, but it's a state by state rule. I know certain states, from here they'll allow shipping from one state to the next, but but it's going to have to be a legal jar. You're not going to get somebody. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, Jim. The fifth appeals circuit. So let's answer a few questions, then we can dive into that. Currently using regular baker's yeast. Okay, bread yeast is good, but it's not efficient as allowed on EC 1118. Right. Is available there. I purchased turbo yeast. It can work about 18 ABV. If I combine with sodium amalgamate, I think it's. I would steer kind of away from a turbo yeast. Basically, the benefits of a turbo yeast are that they add nutrients, and a lot of times they add too much nutrients. It's generally good for. Now, I can't say that about all turbo yeast because I haven't tried all of them, but the ones that I have tried in the past are no bueno. They just didn't work out well, and I've tried a couple different ones, and I've just never went back. So some of the newer ones I may be a lot better, but certainly nothing wrong with bread yeast if you're doing grains. Bread yeast is fine. It's definitely not going to get you the 18%, but 18 percent is pretty high. That's 36 proof, so that's alcohol by volume, ABV. That's pretty high. So that's as much as you're going to get out of EC 1118, and that's probably a gravity of 1.160. Let's see what that gravity would be. It's really way too hot. So you really wouldn't need yeast that goes that high anyway, because it's just definitely going to get you into the realm of, really, really hot liquor. And with grains and other bourbons and brandies, you really don't need that kind of gravity. So let's see what we are at here. So let's see here. Let me look on this chart to see where we would be at. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, you'd be at 1 point. Uh, 150, almost down there in the middle of the white. I mean, that's almost the bottom of the chart, 1.150. That's a really high starting gravity. And that's just going to be real fiery, very fiery. Again, if you want, you're gonna have to go to the liquor store, bro, or look online. We don't sell moonshine here, nor can we talk about selling it on here. That's not we don't discuss that. But back to the yeast. Yeah, the Lalvin's great. It's real good for your brandies and stuff. and bread yeast is perfectly fine for your grain. I'd say, probably get the Red Star Daily yeast out there, and that's also really good for your grains. But for some of the brandies, if you can start delving into some Red Star Premier Rouge or Premier Blancs, red Premier Rouge for some of your darker colored fruits, Premier Blanc for like peaches and lighter colored fruits, white grapes. That's good. Lalvin has a whole bunch of different yeast specific, to like meads and different distillate. So, that's I just get on there, get on Lalvin and look at the charts. If you can get you know, Amazon shipping out there pretty much. I'm not sure what's available in Turkey, but I did bread yeast for a long time. And as far as grains and bread yeast, it has pretty good flavor. I like the two together, and Lalvin is a good clean, but it doesn't give like a lot of florals. It's considered a clean yeast that gives a good neutral flavor, so it doesn't have a heavy influence. At the same time, it doesn't really uh, have a bad influence, or nor is it easy to get out of its range. So it has a high pH range. So it's not easily stressed, right? So it has a high temperature range, a high pH range. So it's pretty good for beginners because it has such a large range. It's also really good for restarting stuck fermentation, which is also great for beginners. So a lot of people, that's the only yeast they use. And if you're just going to use one, that's probably a good one to choose. But I think bread yeast does good with grains, and Daity, of course, does good with grains. And there's some specialty yeast, that you can get. Kveik, yeast is really good. So if you can get some of the Nordic Kveik yeasts, those are really good to try, for grains. And some people like it for, brandies as well, but definitely for your grains. What's going on, Irish? Good to see you, Gip. What's going on, DW? Good to see you, brother. Just chilling here on Saturday night. I need a damn drink. Here, let me get a little sippy sip. It's early and I'm behind already, but that's all right. I'm gonna drink a little bit more of this. This some honey shine. Look, somebody was asking me earlier. They didn't realize you could make shine from mead. Honey shine is pretty damn good. Man, that's gotten sweeter over time too. It's esterified. Some of that headsy taste is esterified into some sweetness. Yeah, now somebody was talking about that as well. That it only applied to the American Distillers Association, Home Dealers Association, and they're the ones who brought the case on. But I think when it's a constitutional issue like that, it was going to have to pretty much apply to all citizens, right? Because the Constitution doesn't stop it at a plaintiff. Now, if it hadn't been ruled as a constitutional issue, I would say that, like a lot of things, it would be just the plaintiffs that, and I could be very wrong. I'm just going on common sense, but, that doesn't always follow the suit in the courts. There may be some reason to it, but I'm thinking because it's considered a constitutional thing that it should apply to pretty much everybody under the Constitution. And that's, if not, it should be easily argued. So I don't think they fight it when it becomes a constitutional issue, unless, of course, it has to do with guns, and then they're just going to fight that shit all the time. Yeah, yeah. You good, man. All I can say is get online and look. There's some legal distillers that are now able to mail it. So a lot of liquor now is able to be mailed from state to state. I'm not sure, what Portland, what their laws are there. But it has to be a reciprocal kind of thing. I know, like in Kentucky, we can only ship to states that allow things to be shipped here as well. So, that gets into reciprocity. So, you'll just have to either go to the liquor store, or you'll have to talk to somebody and find out who can ship there. Might get on Google and find out, who's able to ship their goods there. But there's a lot of good legal jars that you can get. Yeah, and I'm not sure. I don't think the Supreme Court will rule against it on this one. Basically, what the government's argument was, is that it's just too easy for people to dodge taxes or be a tax evader, if they're doing it at home. And if that's their best argument, I guess we just can't have home businesses anymore because they would be the same, falling under the same guys, right? So if that's the best argument they have, they don't have anything. And somebody made the argument, their attorneys made the argument, well, okay, so if you can't do it in the home and it's not legal because it's being done in the home and you can tax evade in the home, moving it out to a storage building makes it different because it's no longer in the home, but it's now at a separate place. Does that make it any different? And no, it doesn't. So they lost their argument in every direction, man. They look bad. So yeah, it has to supersede. If it's a constitutional issue, I would guess that it would have to supersede state law. And that's why, the Supreme Court has overturned all these magazine bans with guns, is because it's a constitutional issue. It's a 2A constitutional issue. So therefore, you can't violate it, and then they have to argue, well, is it a gun? Because only guns are protected under 2A. Is a magazine considered a gun? And they're saying, yes, it is part of the gun. You're trying to restrict people's gun rights. And that falls in under the guise of gun rights, and now they're saying, is suppressors and short barrels, is that necessarily the gun, or is that something that's added to the gun? So they're going through the same argument over that, which, they've dropped the tax, we know, on the NFA. And I don't want to get too far in the second, here, because we know Facebook and YouTube aren't real favorable on that, unless, of course, you're Joe Rogan or somebody like that, and then they're willing to look the other way. But, for us to talk about it is probably a violation of the, their rules. But so I don't think that it's going to, I don't think states are going to be able, now they may have some regulatory issues as far as, you have to get a permit, you have to register the steel, there may be some safety things that they may require you to do. They may require you to get on here and have some classes under old Santa and to get some safety, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's, so it's gonna be, interesting to see how things come out from it. Yeah, or Skip, I'll let them go until it gets bad. If they get crazy racial or something, I'll let it go. But like last week, Tuesday, yeah, getting on here, yeah, we had to block a couple then. Yeah, I think so. O'Sheen. Constitutional covers everybody, and then if it doesn't fall under the Constitution, then it becomes a state law, and then feds can, have laws that are underneath that. And I think, and I think that's kind of where marijuana falls. So it's not a constitutional issue. It's become a state by state issue, and federal pretty much are not able to really enforce anything because it's not a constitutional issue. So I think you're right. What's going on, Scott? Good to see you, brother. So if the Supreme Court leaves it with the lower courts, then the federal prohibition. Yeah. Well, it doesn't mean that they're immediately going to adopt it. But what will happen, JJ, is that somebody, let's just say in Tennessee, gets caught distilling, and they're saying, but the court has deemed that it's unconstitutional to say I can't distill, and then it'll have to go before a court, and the court will then decide, well, based on this prior court's, precedent, this is what we think, and then they'll have to agree because it's gone to us, the Court of Appeals, which, is a pretty high court. So the only thing that's going to change the Court of Appeals decision would be the Supreme Court or Congress creating a new law. So, I think that would be, something that the government might do, or the Supreme Court could say, okay, we think that, there's some other issues here that you may not have considered. We're going to send it back to you to relitigate and decide based on some of this additional information, and may introduce new things. They've done that. But yeah, they would have to send it back or decide. Well, it's my opinion. Well, we need to, let me see here. Also, waiting on Jason Stokes, brother. Let's talk about making you shine better. So I'm looking for something that you followed up with, and I'm guessing maybe cuts. And I want to make sure that we get you taken care of. I'm not going to overlook anybody. Um, so let us know what's going on. What's going on, Glizzy? I didn't see you in the house, brother. I just now scrolled back and saw you post. Sorry about that. Good to see you, man. And also, Danny Elk. Um, Let us know what different yeast that you've tried, and that what kind of distillate are you making. But let's go to Mr. Ott. What's your opinion when running column for neutral? Low power in the beginning will compress heads, keep ethanol in the boiler, and when heads are gone, higher power will keep tails in the boiler. Well, one thing I know for sure compressing is the deflegmator. The deflator will definitely do a lot of compressing. What I tend to do when I run mine is I'll run my heads out. I'll run it high, and I'll get my heads and fours out of there. And then I'll turn my deflator on, and I'll just compress all the hearts and tails, and do that. Seems to be a lot better, work out a lot better for me. And it'll have to vary too based on the different distillates. Now, a brandy is going to be different than a grain, going to be different than, like a mead or, something like that. So it's all going to be a little bit different. And, the amount of heads that you have, like a sugar wash, or a tequila is not going to have as much heads as a plum or slivovich, right? Or a plum wine or something. So, or a plum brandy. So, that's going to vary too and depend. But for me, I tend to just run it without the deflator, deflator, however you want to pronounce it. I leave it off until I get through my heads. And then once I start getting into, the low heads, hearts, I'll turn it on and compress from there onto the tails. And then when you get to the tails, it'll just drop off, but you'll notice the flavor, and the taste change when you're getting pretty close to over compressing tails. But I generally start with higher power and then lower, and then just keep it level. And then at the end, of course, you're going to have to raise it up a little bit to get on through. But yeah, towards the end, I crank higher power at the end to keep tails in the boiler. Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole thing about the taxation of is, there's lots of hobbies out there that we can have, like a woodworker, for example, that in his home on the side he makes furniture and he sells it, or a woman that knits and sells knitted blankets or quilts or whatever on the side, or whatever their little hobby income. As long as you pay taxes on that, there's nothing that they can do. And I would say the same about distilling, because that's the angle that they're going to take. Is if they catch you distilling, they're going to try to get you for everything else, and then if they can't, they always fall back on, well, you didn't pay taxes on it, you evaded taxes. So it always, so if you can prove that you just on your taxes you reported hobby income, you didn't specify exactly what it was, but you can sell beer, you can make beer at home and sell it, you can make wine at home and sell it. That's perfectly legal. Just pay your taxes. So as long as you do the same now, I guess with distillates, that it's going to be okay, and they're not going to be able to get you for tax evasion if you can prove that. But you got to keep your paperwork, and it's going to be, their word against yours. So they're going to have to prove that you actually made more than you were showing, and that's probably one of their biggest issues. And that's not different than anybody else. How's the old lady going to prove how many quilts? How are you going to prove she made more quilts than what she claimed? Or the dude made more furniture than what he's claiming. So I think there's a lot more fraud in our system than tax evasion going on, right? I think there's a lot more people wasting our tax dollars than there are people fraudulently not paying their share, for sure. Well, the lawsuit was against an individual, and it was in Louisiana, and it was him versus the state. So he beat the state, and then it went to the appeals court after that. So, and they lost again. So the state lost, and then they lost it on, I guess, a federal appeals level, when it went to the appeals court. So, right. And I would think that would be the case now, but, that mean they can't arrest you. It doesn't mean that they can't hold you, and it doesn't mean that they can't take you to court over it, which they probably still will. And you're going to have to take an attorney in and fight it, and they're going to have to get that precedent and use that precedent. And if that court, recognizes it, then it's pretty much becomes more and more established every time that's used as a precedent. So it's a landmark case. Right. You're always going to have a little bit of heads throughout the whole thing. And that's regardless of how you do it. And that's just the nature of the beast when you run a pot still and not a, fractional distillation column. So, that's, you can't get away from that because, an azeotrope, it's an azeotrope, and it bonds that way. There's nothing you can do to break that bond, in the pot. You have to do it in the column, and it's just hard to do in just a standard column on a pot still, on a home setup. I just run my heads off first. And another thing you can do is like my old system is it goes up and it goes into a T. So one side branches, and you can run everything through that, and then from the left side you can run it on up through a column and out. So one side you can just run it out through a condenser until you get into the hearts, and then close that valve, open up the other valve, and then run through your column. And just run hearts and tails and compress that through your column. That way you won't have to deal with as much, but it's easier to separate, and you won't have to worry about compressing that way. I knew what you meant. That's right. Or pickling corn, and selling it by the can, it's just, I mean, you're paying the tax on it just the same. You paid the tax on that corn, whether you put it in a jar and pickle it and resell it, or you put it in a mash and make liquor with it. You paid that tax on it, but you'll still have to pay, a tax on the income. But I don't know. Do you have to charge tax when you sell it? I guess you have to charge a tax when you sell it, or I guess you should, So if we're going to start selling moonshine, we're going to start adding 6% to the cost. That's crazy to think that way, isn't it? But maybe that'll be the thing happening before long. All right, that'll be 20 for that quart plus 6%. Let's see, 21.20. But some people are arguing that going on, Roy. Some people are arguing that it'll be only members of the the Home Distillers Association that it will apply to. And I'm not so sure because of its constitutionality. You know, if it were just a regular law and they ruled it that way, I would agree. And they tried that with the gun thing, with because there was a, I don't know if it was concealed or some gun group lobbied and brought a case against, I guess, California or Colorado or somebody about one of their magazine bans. And it was argued, oh well, then only people from that gun group that's lives in California will get around the law. And they're like, no, everybody will get around it. So the Supreme Court, pretty much, when it comes to constitutional issues, they're not going to just limit it to a plaintiff. Yeah, they can send it back to them. They can say, we think you should reconsider a few things, or we think that you were negligent and you didn't consider this. We're not deciding one way or the other, but we want you to consider these facts and reconsider your decision. Now that doesn't mean that they disagree with it, but a lot of times they want to do that for clarification. That way, it's a lot easier to use as a precedent, maybe. Yeah, if you generally when you run lower and slower, you're going to get probably cleaner cuts and less smearing. You're going to get more defined. Usually higher is done for stripping, and lower and slower is done for finish. So, yeah, definitely. Dragon's blood wine sounds good. All right. Alpha Tech 48 Turbo and Turbo 100, really cheap yeast. Everybody using it, but expensive and imported mostly. Now, one thing I would consider out there, if your yeast is getting expensive, like your EC 1118, propagate it. There's nothing. It's so easy to keep alive and use for years and years and years. Man, yeast will last for ever. I mean, they're finding yeast in some of the permafrost and stuff that they can thaw out and still use. They're finding yeast around some of these old distilleries that haven't been there for 100 years, just still living on fence posts and stuff. So it's easy to propagate. So when you get done with your mash, take the bed in the bottom, the yeast bed, the flocculants, whatever in the bottom, rinse it out, get your alcohol out. So you'll take some, distilled water, some good clean water, and try to dilute your alcohol to the point where it's nothing. Mix it up good. You can run it through a strainer to get like cracked corn or any grains or anything like that that's still in there out, fruit skins, whatever you got in there. You want to clean as much of that matter out as you can. You don't want that to mold up on you or anything like that. But rinse it real good, because all your yeast will go through a strainer or a screen pretty easily, because it's small. So once you clean it up and do that, you can jar it up and keep it in the refrigerator. Now, don't put the lid on tight or poke a hole in the lid. Let it breathe. And, every once in a while, just put a little sugar in there to help keep it, thriving. Some people use what's called a yeast donna or yeast brinks. You can look up yeast brink, and a lot of commercial distillers use a yeast brink. You can see their fermenters will be conical on the bottom, and they'll have a valve. And what they have is like a beer keg. It actually is a beer keg in a lot of circumstances. And they'll go up, and they'll try to clamp that beer keg to the bottom, and they'll open that valve up, and they'll dump that yeast bed in the bottom into that beer keg and close it. And there'll be some probably still left in the bottom, and maybe it vacates most all of it. I guess, depending on what yeast you use, whether it's high flocculation yeast or low. And then they'll take that brink and they'll take it over and they'll rinse it, clean it, and they'll reuse that yeast over and over and over and over and over again. And one thing about it is, when you start doing that, you not only have good viable yeast in there, you also have yeast nutrient, because there's a lot of dead yeast in there as well, which we know is yeast hulls makes a great nutrient. So you'll not only have yeast, you'll have yeast nutrient. So you'll have your own little turbo pretty much made up, and you'll never have to pay for it again. And as long as you can keep it viable, you can keep reusing it. It'll keep in the refrigerator. It'll go dormant, and you just reactivate it. Let it sit out and thaw and warm up it to room temperature. Then put it in a jar with some water and warm water about 90-95 degrees, and no hotter. And put a little sugar in there and shake it up vigorously, and then take the top off and just let it. Put a towel over it, let it sit in a cool, dark place, and it'll start foaming up and over. It'll let you know that it's still viable and stuff, and you can use it until it doesn't do that anymore. So yeah, you can do that, reuse it over and over and over. No, it's in Louisiana, so it's pretty much a red quart, but there was both. It was a mixed panel. There was one man and two men and a lady, and I thought it was fine. I didn't get it out a minute ago, but one of the guys says, he looked forward to sampling some of this new constitutional homemade stuff. So, everybody, most everybody out there drinks, right? Or has drank. Not everybody drinks, but most everybody has, or everybody knows somebody has. It's like smoking weed, but so it's not like it's a taboo thing. I never dreamed that marijuana would be legal before home distilling. And here we are in 2026, recreational marijuana everywhere, and home distilling just now hitting the courts. I never would have dreamed that. I would never have dreamed marijuana being recreational ever and home distilling becoming legal. I thought that would happen a long time ago, because I've said forever it's against our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We should have the constitutional right to do that in our own homes. That shouldn't be governed. That's not an illegal thing that we're doing. It's not. There's no victim. There's no harm. It should have never been a law to begin with, and it was all just based on tax. Hey, Miss Lisa, good to see you. So it was all just based on tax and government greed. Actually, the alcohol tax was the first tax that our government imposed on us. Back in Washington, George Washington, a distiller, that was kind of a little corrupt too, Well, we're going to impose a tax on all you distillers, and that way I'll be the only one, rolling in it. So I don't know. Just sugar only. That's fine. Need to start trying some grains, try some fruits, and branch out a little bit, and try some different things. But with sugar only, I would use the EC 1118. It's a good clean yeast, and low flocculence. You won't have a lot of heads with it anyway. So, but reuse it. So anything you get out of the bottom of your when you're done distilling, you rack off, just siphon off everything off the top of that grain bed in the bottom, or your yeast bed in the bottom, and save that. Rinse it out, get all the alcohol out of it, because you don't want to have that alcohol will stress it and kill it and give it bad flavors. But get all that alcohol out, just dilute it and dilute it and dilute it, and keep diluting it with fresh water until you dilute all that alcohol out of there and clean it up a little bit and strain it. And yeah, you can reuse it for over and over and over. You don't have to buy it every time, and you're wasting a lot of money if you don't. Yeah, it was for fuel. It was generally originally for fuel. Now, some of the newer stuff, I don't know. I haven't tried it in ages. Just because there's just so many that are better. Quebecs are definitely better. I'm not sure if they would be available. Yeah, it'd be high, man. It'd be up there. Yeah, definitely be up there. Where's that chart at? See, let me look at it. Yeah, it'd be let's see, 18% would be right there. Well, 20% would be 1.152. So 18, yeah, be about 1.147 to 50, somewhere close to there. Let's see, there's 10, 12. Oh, yeah, let's see, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, that's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, so it's going to be around 18. Yeah, you're right, about 1.14 something. Yeah, for sure. Hard for me to see that. I never go that high. That's really high. But a lot of people doing the sugar, and doing it on a column, Some places they don't mind that fire, man. But there's nothing wrong with a good sugar wash, man. I tell you, yeah, I made a lot, and you can take cornmeal too. You can get you some cornmeal. I guess they got cornmeal there, or some other grain, a little rye, and mix with your sugar and get some different flavors, or some fruits. Experiment, mess around, make some wines. I know Turkish makes some pretty good wines in Turkey. I'm trying to think of some of the distillates come out of Turkey. I know they make a Slivovich. Let's see some of the things they make there. Raku, national spirit made from twice distilled grapes. So they make basically a grappa called a Raku. So it's basically an anise seed. So it's going to be like an ouzo, I guess. Basically a combination of a grappa and an ouzo. About 50%, so 80 to 100 proof spirit, often called the lion's milk. Well, that sounds like a pretty tasty combo, man. A grappa with a little anise. I'm not real big on anise and that flavor, but Yeni Raku. Rocky, maybe. Is that an I? Oh, that is an I. Rocky. Or Raksu. Fruit spirits beside the grapes. They figs or plums. So like a Slivovich. Yeah, I was thinking they had a Slivovich. So plums, a plum-based rum distilled makes a Slivovich. I do that. And they have that there in Turkey too. I thought they did. So that's real good too. Try you some plums, brother. That they call that Slivovich in a lot of other countries. I'm not sure what your country calls it. But yeah, I'd say if you could get you some, that EC 1118 would be good for that too. It'd be fine for the plums, or that Red Star Premier Rouge is good for plums too. That's what I use. So either one of those. But yeah, the Raki sounds good. Yeah, 1.14. Did I say 1.4? What's going on, Michael? Good to see you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. I mean, I use bread yeast for a lot of things, but I've never, since I've been doing wines. I may have done some of my first ones that way, and I'm sure I've done a mead that way in the past. But since I started getting into the wines and making wines and stuff, I started becoming a yeast snob and trying different yeast, and it makes a difference, and it depends on what you're looking for, and what flavor you want. Uh, some people would shudder at the thought of a yeast with grapes, and other people say, well, that's perfectly fine. If you've never tried it, don't knock it. But and a lot of people that there's a lot of wine snobs out there that would just say that's just the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. And some people say, well, I don't I don't care, I like it. And there's no facts when it comes to that kind of thing. It's what you like. So if you like it, absolutely. uh but yeah, I've this Red Star Premier Rouge and Premier Blanc, and I'm not even sure if they have the Rouge anymore. I think they might even um, have changed it to a different one. They do make some changes over time, but I can't remember if they've changed it or not. It's been a while since I bought any of it. I usually get the 500-gram blocks, and I try to keep it. Yes, it is time for a sippy sip. More honey shine. Thank you, Mike. Man, that stuff is mellowed out and sweetened in the month and a half I've had it. Definitely different than it was when I got it. Was it a Texas case or Louisiana? I think it was Louisiana, but maybe it was Texas and just heard in Louisiana because that's all that same Fifth Circuit of Appeals. I did. Did you get a little tipsy there on Thursday? I missed it. Well, I may have to go back and watch it now. Catch Miss Lisa getting snockered. Yeah, that's a whole 2 days ago now. I tell you what, though, I'm not saying you, Lisa, but I'm saying me. Now that I've gotten a little older, them hangovers last for days, man. I know Maggie Valley. Every year after Maggie, it's a couple of days before I feel maybe a few. Last year, I think it was year before last. Year before last, I didn't sober up the whole weekend, man, and I was hurting for 3 days, man. They often try to lay application to the plaintiff. But I think on this one, since it's a constitutional, I think they have to apply it to everybody because of its constitutionality. Because the Constitution can't just apply to a plaintiff, right? It'd be like, somebody arguing for a gun right and says, okay, but only applies to you, or your gun group, and they just can't do that with Constitution. Other things, yeah, like marijuana, absolutely. They can probably, do that some way, easy. Yeah, I think everything is legal in Oregon. I think you're right about that, brother. I think you're definitely right about that. Or they just look the other way. I don't think that they can, yeah, it was actually it was an individual. Let me there is a Reuters let's see, I put it in the Moonshine Militia. I think Tom posted it as well. Yeah, Tom posted it as well. Also the link, I posted it earlier in the morning, and I guess there's several posts on top of it. But if you look down at my post below that, there's a Reuters U.S. Appeals Court declares 158-year-old distilling ban unconstitutional. So if you open up that, it talks about the Fifth Court of Appeals in New Orleans ruled in favor of the nonprofit Hoppy Distillers Association and 4 of its 1,300 members. So the 4 of the 1,300 members brought the case. One of those was actually somebody that got in trouble. Now let me find where that was. 3-judge panel. Edith Holland Jones was the female I was talking about. And she said it actually reduced tax revenue than increasing it by preventing distilling in the first place, unlike laws that regulated the manufacture and labeling of distilled spirits on which the government could collect taxes. So she had some valid arguments there that the Supreme Court will probably agree with. But I do want to find out where this originated. And I think it might have been another article where I found that. So this Andrew Grossman, who argued the nonprofit's appeal, that was the attorney, not the judge, said that it was an important victory and let the plaintiffs pursue their passion to distill fine beverages in their home. He said he looked forward to sampling their output. The decision upheld a July 2024 ruling by U.S. District Judge Mark Pitton in Fort Worth, Texas. You're right, it was Texas. He put his ruling on hold so the government could appeal. So you're right. It did originate. I was wrong. It was Louisiana. It was in Texas, an individual. But it was an individual. I did read that is an individual that got caught with either materials or buying a steel or buying materials or something like that they argued he was going to use for that purpose. I don't think they actually caught him doing it, but yeah. So he out of Texas. Yeah, I was thinking it was out of Texas. We talked about that just a couple of months ago when we posted on it. But yeah, so the original case was in Texas, but the Court of Appeals was out of New Orleans. That's where the Fifth Circuit Appeals Court is in New Orleans. Oh, yeah, Oregon. You don't. Yeah, that usually does when you empty them jars out. Yeah, I think there's going to definitely be some sort of regulation. Of course, government's always got to regulate. I don't. I would hope not. But they're going to. Now, whether it's safety classes that you're going to have to take or get some kind of certification, like you have to carry concealed. You used to have to get a license, right? Even though it was this, guns are a protected, class, constitutionally protected thing. You still had to get that that concealed carry permit, which is now, hopefully going to be deemed unconstitutional. But I think they're allowing that to be done by state, which I don't understand. I think constitutional carry should apply to all 50 states. Constitutional in key operative words there. We're constitutional carry here. But I think there will be some regulations for sure, though. You can bet. What yeast would I recommend for a balanced multi mountain brandy? Quebec. If price isn't a factor, I would definitely say a Quebec yeast. Anytime a grain's involved. Now I wouldn't just for a brandy, but if you're going to mix, like an apple and a rye or something like that, I'd probably go with a Quebec or a Premier Blanc. And everybody's going to have different opinions. If you want clean flavor, the EC 1118, but sometimes it's just too clean, and like in brandies, you want to carry some fruitiness forward and getting some, fruity notes and some other flavors, and that EC 1118 just ain't gonna help you with that, So I would probably, or a Lalvin, D47 would probably be a good one if it's like a peach, that works pretty well with peaches. But to get some fruity, sweet fruity esters, floral fruity esters, I would try to go with some different wine yeasts. That's right. But I've talked to some people and they're like, well, now I don't know if I want to do it anymore if it ain't against law. Half the people doing it just being a rebel. But for me, I've always dreamed of this day, and it's not there yet. So, don't go out there and start making moonshine in the front yard. No, don't do that. But yeah, they could still crack down. It's still a federal law and it's not a constitutional issue. So, you would have some, even though if it was legal in your state, you would have your state protecting you because they've deemed it legal. So if the feds come into your state and get you for something, unless it's interstate sales, now if you try to go take it to another state and sell it, then your state's not going to be able to help you because then you've created a federal issue by doing it interstate. So as long as you stay within your state, which is one of the arguments Texas is having on silencers right now. If you've been up to date on a lot of that, they're saying if a silencer is made in state, then the government shouldn't have any say in it because it's not an interstate sale. So if it's made and sold within this state and used within this state, then the government really shouldn't apply, right? So that's an argument that's in the Texas courts right now too, as far as suppressors are concerned. But yeah, if it's legal in your state recreationally and you're permitted to grow it legally in your state, and the feds want to come in and do something, then it's going to be your state fighting on your behalf and going against the state. So you're not going to be the focus of that litigation. It's going to be pretty much between the state and the government, and you're just going to be an individual that's actually bringing it. So if your state, is worth a shit, but if they create those laws, that's something that they're going to have to back up because they're the ones that told you it was okay. Right. So, if the feds come after you, you have to say, well, you said it was okay. So they're going to have to come up and fight the government. And that's something that the feds and the state, they don't want to deal with. They don't care at this point. They don't, it's such a non-issue and such a small issue with all the other eels in the world. And in today's time, I hate using that, but in today's time, that's really, it's not like you're cooking meth in the house, right? It's just marijuana. So. Yeah. Yeah, that's a fact. They do that a lot. They will do that a lot. And there are a lot of states that do that. And yeah, Illinois is one of them. They definitely, it's called lawfare, where they use, laws against you and just basically bankrupt you before you can ever get to court, and yeah, it's definitely one of their tactics. Pressure cooker, copper pipes. Well, that's how I started a long time ago. Yeah. Danielle. All right. Daniel K. I thought it was Danny Elk. Okay. My bad. All right, Daniel. I'm sorry. I saw Danny Elk. I'm thinking of Running Bear and Danny Elk. And all right. Yeah, I started on a pressure cooker as well. So, yeah, we both started out the same way. But there's a lot of nice Olympics in Turkey, man. They got a lot of nice artesians, man. I love watching those guys out there hammer out that copper and just sit there and beat on that copper all day and hammer it out and shape it and make some nice Olympic steels, man. They're craftsmen, man, true craftsmen. I love watching those videos. They'll sit there, man. They'll hold that with their feet and they'll have that sandbag underneath it and be going to town on it. They use their feet like a damn third hand, man. It's amazing to see what they can do, man. It's here we'd have some kind of machine stamping or doing it, but there, man, they all by hand. It's true craftsmanship. I love watching it. So I'm sure there are, our state allows beer and wine, and so and in some states it's just allow it, but different amounts. Like I think here's 1,000 gallons or so many 500 gallons or something before you have to get a permit, and that's like $500, or it scales up. So the more you do, the higher, of course, the the little permit's going to cost you. But so home brewing, let me Google that real quick. Before that, let me try to finish sharing these links. out there. If they're going to let me, we'll see. I really have to dance around the issue what we talk about tonight because, um, damn it, I got to recopy that link because they, we really have to, especially when we talk about marijuana, we have to be very cautious because Phil got in trouble before, I guess, in one of these podcasts or a podcast. Somebody said or said that we were talking about drugs use and well, pot's legal in a lot of states. So I don't, Joe Rogan talks about it and millions of people see it on their, on Facebook and they don't say nothing to him. So I guess if we just mention about marijuana and how it's legal in some states, not other, I don't see how they can do that, but they pick and choose what they want to. But now that news laws are out that maybe home distilling is going to be legal, they'll soften up and let me share it to more groups maybe next time. How about that? Would be nice. That would be real nice. But we'll see. Also, if you're in a group that moonshine group that I don't share my podcast to, and y'all would like for me to share it to your group, let me know and I'll add it. I just joined a group the other day. I didn't even know existed. It's been around for a couple of years. I know some of the admins in there, and it's like, why didn't you invite me 2 or 3 years ago, man? Why? Yeah, this has been around a long time. I had no idea, Marcia. So we in there now. I don't even know if I got them on my list or not. So I'll have to. I don't even know if I'll be able to share it to all my list. That's crazy. They definitely limited me on my first round of sharing. I just think it's silly. I think I should be able to post this and just check on every group I want to share it to and share it to it. It's not like I'm damn, this group don't get a lot of posts. The last post was my last podcast. Damn, there's 15. No, there's nothing. Okay. Maybe I'll. Yeah, it's definitely different how I have to do it this time. But it's working. Let's see. Unbelievable. Well, maybe at 10 I'll be able to share it to the last two. It's silly. But yeah, let me check that real quickly. Kentucky wine, 100 gallons per year per single adult, 200 gallons for a household with two or more adults over 21 that are permitted. So that's kind of like that's basically how Missouri is with distilling. So 100 gallons per year for wine. Let's see about beer here in Kentucky. I thought it was more than that. To be honest, I thought it was in the thousand. And beer is 200. Oh no, it's the same as wine. So it's 100 per person. Yeah, so it's the exact same as wine. Malt beverages or wine, the same. Now let's see what it says about distilled. Yeah, thinking hard on that. AI, I just broke it. Currently illegal. No, it's not. You need to research that. Beer, wines, 200, but not the exemption does not apply to distilling. We'll see about that soon enough. It does say a very recent U.S. appeals court ruling declared the federal law ban on home distilling unconstitutional. However, this does not immediately change Kentucky state law, which still criminalizes the practice. So it'll have to go through the courts, and it has to be a precedence established and argued, probably maybe not in every state, but enough times to where other judges are just going to rule in favor. Yeah, you can get a license. Yeah, like a fuel license. So I don't know. We'll see. Oh yeah. Oh, but want to be appointed to you. Some clown that knows nothing what they're doing. Yeah. Somebody just got a lost going green as the pea. Yeah. I know. So does Clint. He doesn't have any excuse though. Yeah, constitutional shine. That'd have to be some good old corn liquor, wouldn't it? Yep. SCOTUS shine. After the Supreme Court rules, get you some SCOTUS shine. There you go. What's going on, Chris? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, actually, West Virginia's got it legalized now. So they started out really ridiculous, though. They were like a gallon per 21 up to 2 gallons. And I think they upped it to 5 once people complained. But that's far from the 100 gallons that's allowed in Missouri. So, 100 gallons per person, that's 2 barrels almost. That's a lot of liquor, right? I mean, that's 2 big barrels that you can make on your own, right? And if you have 2 people, that's 4 barrels per household per year almost. That's a lot of liquor. But 1 gallon, who the hell? I mean, it's just like some of these people trying to make gun laws never shot a gun in their life. These people trying to make liquor laws, 1 gallon. I mean, what size steel? You couldn't have anything over a 5 gallon steel. You just have to cut the runoff, right? And they going to include heads and tails or what? It's just crazy, crazy. That's just way too little. Well, we've got horse racing here, and they at the Red Mile here in Lexington, they're definitely trying to get gambling, but it's being fought tooth and nail. But they've got these little games. It's horse racing games, so it's like a slot machine, but it's horse racing, and you try to pick the winner. But technically, because it's horse racing, it's okay. It's silly, man. I mean, you might as well just get a punch card. It's no different. So yeah, it's coming next. But is that a constitutional right to gamble? I don't know. I don't know. And in your own home, I don't know if you can make that argument. Can we gamble in our own home? But I don't know. So going on, Justin? Good to see you, brother. Doing good, man. Oh yeah, I'll get up with you on that recipe. Sure slipped my mind, bro. What's going on, Shineco? Good to see you. Good to see you. For those that don't know, Moonshine Co.'s got a lot of cool t-shirts for sale. Y'all check them out. All right. Let me go see if I can get my folder real quick. I'll be right back. I will say there are some charts out here like this chart. Let's see. This chart that'll say, wait, not that chart. That tells you how many grams. But it's a chart that'll tell you how many pounds you should use per gallon of water. Dang on. Oh, I need to say all files instead of custom. Let's see if I can find that. Help if I could see. Is that it? Yeah, here we go. Man, I might have to get my glasses first on. So bananas 3 to 5 pounds per gallon, but I don't think that's if you're going to add sugar, right? And that's close. I think that's pretty close to what mine is. But I made mine with brown sugar and made basically a banana rum. So let me see what I got here. Put on my spectacles. All right, that's cherry wine. This is blueberry wine, pineapple rum. Blueberry, pineapple, white wine. That's cool. It'll be in here somewhere, but I'm sure it's just basically use your hydrometer. But I think I've got like there's my peach. Yeah, this peach. There's my plum. And there's my Concord grape recipe. And it's probably on the very bottom. You know it will be. Let's see. Strawberry, blueberry. Well, shit. Again, I don't even see it in here. Shit. I don't know. It's not in here. So I've written it on the back or something. I will say it's nothing special. It's basic. Maybe this is it. All right. Basically, I don't have it. It was like 3 pounds, I think. 3 pounds per gallon of water. and mashed it all in. And I think I just used dissolved brown sugar in another gallon of water and just added it until I got to 1.080. So that was basically my recipe. And it with the brown sugar, it gave it a good grungy rum, and it fermented well. As far as what yeast did I use with it, it was probably either an EC 1118 or the Premier Blanc. I would have used one of those two. Most likely an EC 1118, and it was pretty simple. And basically, most recipes can be done that way. Just again, use this chart. And this is a wine chart. So this is if you're not going to be adding a lot of sugars and just using the fruit itself. So, like apples, 7 to 16, that's a huge swing, but it's 16 if you're using, very low sweetness apples, right? Like I guess if they're green apples that are tart, they're not going to have much sugars in them at all. So it's going to take a lot versus 7 if they're sweet, very sweet. The same with bananas. I think I used 3. So it's saying here 3 to 5. So 3 with some brown sugar is going to be equivalent to more, right? But I'm pretty sure I used 3 pounds per gallon, and I had like 30 some pounds. So that's a 10 gallon. And no, I think I had 40 pounds of bananas. I had a lot of bananas. They were on sale. So thinking I had like 40 and I did maybe 15. It's hard for me to remember, but something like that. And then I just added brown sugar dissolved in water, hot water dissolved good. You want to dissolve. You don't ever want to just add sugar, especially like a brown sugar crystals and stuff to that. Always try to dissolve it, let it cool, and then add it. And but I'm pretty sure, I just kept adding sugar, brown sugar water until I got to the 1.080 and then fermented that. But I will say leave plenty of room for headspace because that cap will get huge, man. I was really surprised. And the first time I did bananas, it was a mess. I had my airlocks on and it blew the airlock out. And I mean, we were talking ceiling, bananas on the ceiling. So it was pretty messy. It was really bad. And after that, you'll never forget. And you probably won't cover them again, just for the towel, and put a towel over them and a towel under them, right? So, yeah, it was a big mess. But if you got 60 pounds, I'd say you're good for a 20 gallon. Perfect. I think that'll work out perfectly for you. That'll be the 3 per gallon, and add some, again, use your hydrometer. And now when you do the hydrometer, just don't put it in the banana mash, with it all slimy and thick because it's going to give you a false reading. You're going to have to basically what I do is I've got one of these big strainers, these metal screen strainers that they use in canning and stuff. And it's about that big around and about that deep. So I'll push it down into the mash and I'll just take I've got like a plastic measuring cup that I'll just dip it out, and that way I can get just liquid. And I'll put that in a jar or a graduated cylinder and drop the hydrometer in there to read. And just keep adding, some sugar water until you get to 1070, 1080. I do 1080 for that, and it worked out real well. And it turned out real well. But if you want to, you can also add some, high temp alpha when you cook. If you want to cook your bananas, kill off all the yeast and add some high temp alpha and convert some of your starches. You can of course do that and probably use a little less. I didn't my first time, but since you can. And use some of the powder. If you got powder like I do, you can kind of get rid of it that way if you don't want to just throw it away like me. And then throw some glucose in there, and it'll definitely get some more sugars out of that because, there is some starch. Let's see if I have a starch chart. Let me see if I can pull that up. Yeah, unripe green bananas are highly starchy, containing 70 to 80% starch on a dry weight basis. 89% of their carbs are starch. So, yeah, you can definitely use some amylase on those. Once they ripen, though, the starch drops to less than 1% as it matures while sugar increases. So it's basically when it goes from green, it's starchy and there's natural amylases in there that's converting that starch in the banana to sugars as it ages. And so, so there's natural enzymes in there that are converting that. So yeah, by the time you get to a pretty ripe or overly ripe banana, there's not going to be a lot of starch left, but if they're kind of in between, you could probably get a little extra sugar out of them if you wanted to throw a little bit of powder amylase in there at about 150, 55. But a lot of people will do that. They'll take it to 155, 60 to kill off any wild yeast, right? To kind of eliminate any kind of wild yeast and bacteria, anything like that. I always try to do it unless it's a wine, and then I won't necessarily do it for all my wines because it can kind of oxidize and ruin some of the flavors. Um, yeah, that should work out perfectly fine for you. But yeah, I like the dark black brown sugar too, not just regular brown sugar, but the dark brown seems to have a little more molasses in it and gives you a little bit more of that rum flavor. No, there is no federal ban. Yeah, I don't think it can. I don't think it can because of the constitutionality. If it weren't a constitutional issue, it definitely would apply only to the plaintiffs. But I don't think because of its constitutionality that they can just limit it. Now they may try to, and some might argue yes, but I think it would, because of it's a constitutional issue, the Constitution has to apply to all citizens. It can't just apply to a select group. So as long as you're a legal citizen, that would have to apply to you. Now, if you weren't a legal citizen, you don't have the constitutional rights that a citizen does. So that's also been argued. Were you Miss Night Owl Thursday night? Were you? Did y'all podcast that late? I thought I was the only crazy one that did that. Oh, I see. I missed it. I might have to go watch it. Yeah. So you use molasses. I like using the brown sugar. 1 gallon molasses, 20 pounds of brown sugar, 18 pounds banana. Freezing them first helps a lot. Yeah, sure does. You didn't get a mass cap. Mine was huge, man. It was crazy. Yeah, I did mine a big barrel too. Yeah, mine was, but yeah, it was a seal barrel, and it was kind of after I first got them, and it was a seal barrel, had the little ring cap, and I put just a regular, me being a dumbass, put like a regular bubbler on there that's supposed to go on like a 5 gallon carboy. Yeah, yeah, it hit the ceiling, man. It didn't let go though. It didn't blow the barrel, but it shot out of it. It made a huge mess. But from now on, yeah, just put a towel over it and under it. But I leave at least half, you know, because it can get huge. Yours didn't get huge. Let's see, 18 pounds. Didn't say how much water, but I'm guessing close to 20. I had a pretty high ratio, I guess, because that's 3 pounds per gallon. There's a lot. It was pretty thick. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things going on that with a lot of activist judges. Now, I'm not the one to get into politics and all this, but they're generally going outside their jurisdiction and outside their court. Judges get a little leeway when it comes to class actions, outside their court, but a lot of these judges are way overstepping their bounds. There's one that's just recently uh, gone against a couple of things that Trump's done, and he's done it yet a third time for the same exact thing. So I think there's going to be a point in time, that they're just going to start getting disbarred for overstepping their bounds because they know they're doing it and they're doing it anyway, just to be obstructionists, and that's they're allowing political bias, and you can't have a political bias when you're a judge. That's a nonpartisan position, and there shouldn't be any. What's going on, Mr. Morgan? How you feeling, brother? Yeah, had to do shadows here, and I'm behind 30 minutes. Yep. Heck on it. Yeah, they don't have to rule on it, and what they would pretty much do is they can agree with it without ever having to hear it and not make a ruling on it, but just not hear it at all and let it stand, and yeah, 60 pounds with 20 gallons is fine. That'll turn out good for you. You'll get good flavor. Mine, it wasn't real heavy banana. It just had a grunge, it was just a good dark grungy flavor that I loved. And then, but it just tasted. It didn't have a front, a middle, and an end. It just was the same throughout. So I wanted to kind of give it a little bit more front end character with something, and I was going to go with peanut butter. Um, and everybody said use the powder, so I got the powder and I was going to use it. Somebody said, "Oh, you got to be careful; it gets bitter." So I'm like, "Well, I don't want to ruin this good rum, and make it all bitter because I had pretty good amount in that barrel." And so I decided I'll make root beer shine with it, and you infuse some root beer in it. It worked out really well with that root beer and that darkness, that grunge. It had the front of the root beer, and then followed with that root beer, and that grunge came through at the same time, and it just enhanced the flavor of that root beer. And it's good. Everybody likes root beer, loves it. Interesting. Yeah, I didn't do that. Freezing them does help a lot for sure. And I think Phil Billy did that with his. He did a video on it, and he got a bunch of bananas. I don't know where he gets these deals. I guess people watch his show and watch stuff, and a bunch of farmers up there around him, know what's going on. And I don't know, he might give him a little bit of jar in exchange for something. But man, they load him down with all the watermelons. I know they grow a lot of melons up there and cantaloupes. I know he pays for a lot of it too. I know he probably overpaid for those half-ass rotten cantaloupes. He was giving $1 each for them. Shit, I'd offered them a quarter each. They'd take it because most of them are getting, fed to the hogs if they, are tilled under, and just fertilizing. Sassafras infusion. I noticed that popped up here on the screen. You have to be careful. You want to make sure to get the saffron out. I did post a link. I guess I did it on. I don't know if I did it on my page. I guess I did it on my page. I might not have put it on the militia page. I should share that there as well. But it was talking about how the government, made it illegal for a while, and maybe some reasons why they did that. I've always read about the saffron in it and how it can be, cancer causing. And, I don't do the experiments with lab rats and all that. And I don't want to tell somebody that it's safe if it still does do that. So I always try to err on caution and say, just be real careful and read up on what you're doing. And if there's a way to denature any saffron and make it where it's safe, try to do that, because I'm not sure if the temperature that distilling it would be enough to get rid of it, whereas maybe just brewing a tea or steeping a tea at room temperature in the root might not have enough temperature to denature it. I just don't know enough about it, so I always just try to err on the side of caution when I advise people, because I don't want people getting sick and saying, well, damn, Santa told me it's going to be okay. And, and now I'm, got cancer eating up with this or that. I couldn't live with that, so I won't tell anybody, I'm afraid to say it's okay and safe and be wrong, but I will say that just read up on it if you decide to do it. I know that people used to make that sassafras tea all the time. My grandparents did. Everybody did. It was a home remedy. And yeah, it was somebody causing trouble, JJ. And again, saffron is also there's also some kind of crazy drug that can be synthesized from doing all this, and but somebody may have heard us talking about that, or an onisin or something else that's in some of the pawpaw or something else, other fruits out there that can have some toxins if they're not treated properly, and turn that into us promoting drug use or something. And quite the opposite. If it's something that's toxic, I'm going to tell you not to do it, not trip on it. So yeah, but it was somebody just causing trouble. Yeah, freezer ripens them up really quickly, for sure. Yeah, a lot of people will do combo yeast. And some people say, oh, that's not good to do. They compete and they'll cannibalize each other and it'll stress. And some people say it's awesome. Some people say do one first and then follow up with the other one later and let the later one eat the first one. They say, I mean, and it's all opinion. It's just what you end up with and how does it taste. And if you like it, then it's not wrong, right? So a lot of people in the distilling world and brewing and all this try to come up with a lot of fictional facts, right? And it's a lot of opinion. There's always this line, well, 80 or 90% of the people kind of prefer this, but there's always that 10 that prefer that. That's getting closer towards, more factual or preferable, but there's always a few that prefer the other way. So, there's no facts of what the best yeast is, even though 90% of the people that have tried them all would prefer this yeast, some prefer the other yeast. So is it wrong? No, it's just their opinion. And most people would opine one way, but there's always those that think differently. So I try to state facts as facts. And then when it's something that's more of an opinion, stated as such, and just because I believe something to be true doesn't mean that it's a factually true. It's just that it's something that I found that I prefer, and I try to always disclaim that too. Got you a tent, huh? Awesome. My first tent was, I got this 4x8 sheets. This building, I guess they were doing a remodel, and it was a medical remodel. And on their walls, they used this laminate plastic, and it was textured on one side, flat on the other, and it was just like big 4x8 sheets of plywood, except it was just real thin and flexible. So I got that, and I made cylinders out of it, big, huge cylinders, and I used to make big, huge, and stacked them, and it was reflective and did real well. Worked out real well. So that was my first kind of tent. That was a long time ago. What, you didn't get any notifications? 20 gallons? Right. And I guess that would be pretty much, that's going to have to be 20 gallons at any given time. You just can't ever get caught with more than that, right? Because how do they know how much you're drinking and how much you made? And so I'm guessing that's just pretty much has to fall into a possession thing. Right. Exactly, Mike. I think that it would be pretty much uh, in possession. Yeah, it's the same here, Chris. 200 if there's two people in the house. If there's only 121 or older, it's just 100 here. But if you have a home with two people 21 or older that are able to do it, I guess I'm not sure if that would apply to felons or not. I don't know how they would. I don't know. But it did say 21 that would be able to. So maybe there would be something that would, maybe a judge's order or something that they wouldn't be able to. I don't know. 15 per quarter. Okay. Yeah, well, I guess we're pretty lenient here in Kentucky. We got 100 per person, 200 total household. So maybe they'll be as lenient on the moonshine. I don't know though. Kentucky will be pretty strict. Constitutional corn liquor. There you go. Awesome. Awesome. Oh, that reminds me. Somebody sent me a pic. Let me see if I can find that here real quick. Somebody sent me a picture of a still they just built. Now, they just like 6-8 months ago started with a small vever. And y'all have heard me talk about how somebody starts with a small vever, and next thing you know, they're regretting like hell that they made that, and they're wishing they'd got something different, a little bit bigger, and before you know it, they've graduated to something bigger. Yeah. So check this out. Went from, I think it was like a 6-gallon vever to a 55-gallon drum with a swan neck. Look at that. It's awesome, man. Now they're going to put out some shine. That's that constitutional moonshine still right there. But he's got his valve on top there for pressure relief when he's done. And told him maybe put a little sight glass right before that reducer so you can see if he's puking over. That would be the only concern, is being able to keep a good visual. I always like having that sight glass right above, the steel to make sure that you don't getting anything puking over. And you can also put your copper mesh in there, and you can see how the how it's loading up on your copper mesh, and make sure you don't get any you know puking up into the copper mesh and letting it plug it up. But yeah, that's looking good, ain't it? Nice 55 stainless drum with the band converted. Yep, yep. Like it. Looking good. That's good. Yeah, I think a lot of states are that at 100, 200. I think I saw a couple of different states that were that similar. I know Missouri is, I think, on beer, wine, and now shine. It's all of 100, 200. So that's cool. But for some reason, I thought we were up to 1,000, but I've never gotten anywhere near to 100 gallons of even wine. But I mean, you can make this wine, and it doesn't have to be for your own consumption. You, as a hobby, you can sell it. You just have to make sure that you have to do it like a business. So you can write off all your expenses, all your the what it takes to make it as part of the production, and you have it's like a business. So you can treat it like your hobby, and but you just have to pay taxes on the income. So you can sell your wine legally. You just have to make sure that you file it and pay for taxes on it. But once you get about above the 100, 200 threshold, then you're definitely going to have to get a license. I don't know. If that's your pursuit to happiness, there's an argument to be had for it. I just, something our forefathers didn't really hammer out. So I don't know. Might have to have a new amendment to make it constitutional. Yeah, I'm feeling much better, man. I was really run down. Hello, Miss Tammy. Good to see you. And to mention gambling, I went to the track Wednesday. Uh, they got a pretty cool thing going on out here at Keeneland. So you go in and you bet. So you enter this pool. So each pool that you enter is $10, right? And for $10 in 6 races, you pick a you pick a horse. And so if it wins or places, then you get that money credited to this pool. And so whoever wins the most wins the pool. It can get 1,000, 2,000 plus dollars. For the people going there. So it's a lot of fun. It's cheap to enter, and I didn't win anything. One of my buddy that goes and one of his friends, pretty good handicappers. Jamie's a real good handicapper. He goes to Vegas every year to competition. He's going to actually yesterday. I hadn't talked to him, saying how he did, but he ponies up $400 or $500 getting a lot of these competitions and stuff. But he'll win a few of them and gets a free trip to Vegas out of it every year. Uh, but he's stays up on it. He does his research. So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'll probably go again this Wednesday. It's a lot of fun. And it's not, it's 10, $20. I bet 20. I did two different pools, and I got the money, but it's just I wasn't in the top 10. There was hundreds and hundreds of people involved. So, but they get quite a bit of money, and the pool gets up there, and the percentage that you win is based on how many people that enter it. So they do guarantee a minimum, but it's thousands. So if you win, it's thousands of dollars plus a lot of free food cards and things like that people kick in to advertise and stuff. It's pretty cool. No dumb questions, brother. If it's a stainless steel can like I just showed, absolutely. As long as you got a stainless steel can that looks like that, whether it be 30, I mean, you can get a garbage can. As long as it's stainless steel, it's fine. Galvanized, no. Carbon steel, no. Back in the old days, they did use oil drums and stuff, and yeah, that was toxic stuff. But yeah, if you can find you a good stainless steel drum or a beer keg, get you a beer keg. That's what most people do. You know, it's cheap. Get you a $35 beer keg, and that again, look at this. That ferrule on the top of this rim here. That's 2 inch going into 3, and that's a 3 inch gooseneck goosing down to smaller diameter. But at the top of a beer keg, it's the same size. That it's a 2 inch ferrule that you can connect that gooseneck or swan neck to, or a cap to, or a column to. You could let me take that out and put another one up here. You can put one of these on there. Let me go back to my pictures here. You could put one of these on there. Daggone it, where is that? How does this happen every week? Oh, there's all my pics. That's how. Okay, so you can do something like this. Get your beer keg and put your a little column of deflag on there and distill that way, or which is what a lot of people do, Bill. Or you can get a beer keg and put a little column like this on there. I saw on eBay, I think those were on sale for 99, but they were charging like 30 shipping, and you can generally get them for 129.39 to 150.60, depending on where you get them. I think Phil Billy's got them for somewhere in between there. But yeah, and there's the sight glass I'm talking about right in the middle there above that mesh. So you can see what's, if anything's puking above there. But yeah, so you can put that right there on top of the beer keg and run it. Or you can just buy one of these. These are complete, ready to go. Chinese Vever steels. I know GW is going to hate me for mentioning it, but it's an alternative, for somebody that doesn't want to, or you can buy you copper steel or get you some copper, make a steel. But these all stainless units come out, and you can put you some copper inside that football. Now, GW, don't get mad at me, brother. But yeah, and or you can get a sheet of copper and solder you out, or have somebody make you one and go that route as well, brother. But yeah, a beer keg's probably one of the cheaper, easier routes to go. Just get you a beer keg for about $35 and put one of them columns on there about 130, so about less than 200. You could have a 15-gallon steel, and I think these are about 230 now to 240. Sometimes they go on sale for right around 200, but either one of those work pretty well for you if unless you want to spend 750, 1,500 or so on a small copper steel. But yeah, definitely, brother. If I can get caught up here. I'm definitely going to. What's going on, Jason? Yeah, I'm definitely feeling better, brother. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it was my birthday weekend, and I got hammered Friday, and I pulled an all-nighter and stayed up until Saturday, and I hadn't had I think I nodded off for an hour and a half maybe at one point, and I was by that evening, and I went out to eat too and stuffed my gut, and I've got IBS, so after I eat, I generally get sick. But I was hungover, I was sick, and I mean, I was feeling bad, man. I was, I was definitely not going to be able to get on there, man. I would have been a grumpus. I wouldn't have been a very happy person. I was feeling bad, man. I didn't throw up, but I was on the verge of it, and I felt horrible. I took my meds, and I think I woke up at like 4 or 5 that morning, and I was feeling quite a bit better. But I was just so run down, and between that, I get sick after I eat every time I eat, pretty much, and but that combined with the hangover and just the lack of sleep, it's hard on an old man. But I still do that stupid shit. You'd think I'd learn, being as old as I am, but sometimes you just. But I sat Friday night and sat and hammered a jar down, and kind of like Miss Lisa did Thursday, I guess. And I wasn't feeling very good. Of course, absolutely. And purifying rainwater, just get the bacteria out of it and kill everything off. And I tell you what, you probably these days safer starting with rainwater than tap water, but a lot of people eat snow and drink rainwater, and that's not good. There's a lot of bacteria in our that thrive in the atmosphere. People don't realize that, but there's bacteria that ride on all this dust and other things in our atmosphere, and snow is filthy. If you look at it under a microscope, you wouldn't believe it. So, rainwater and snow are no bueno unless you boil it, and just or distill it. So, yeah, absolutely. It's important, to for your survival package to have something to distill water in, and it's going to be hard for somebody to unless you got big old barrel of mash going. It's hard for somebody to say what that beer keg's sitting there for, right? So you got a beer keg in the corner. It's just a beer keg until you fill it full of mash and put some heat underneath it, right? So it's kind of going to be hard for them to prove. And if you're just cooking water off and distilling water out of it, what are they going to be able to say? But yeah, beer kegs are pretty cheap, easy way, Bill, for sure. Now, if you want to up your game, you might want to go with a 55-gallon drum. That's pretty badass. But that's going to weigh a lot. So you need to make sure you got a good steady stand. And you want to get one of these banjo burners on it. He and I were talking, and let's see here. I don't know if I have that image or not in all of these. I know I've screen captured it before, but I don't know if that's in my screenshots or not. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. So this is what they call a banjo burner, and it usually operates on about a 20 psi, and this is 10-inch. So it's a lot bigger than what it looks. They're like this. One of those under that barrel would do pretty well, or under a 30-gallon, 20-gallon steel. It's real good because each of those little holes has a little flame that burns about that tall on high, and well, maybe a little taller. If you adjust it at the base here, you can adjust it so it makes where it's all blue, but it distributes the heat pretty evenly. Whereas your turkey fryers have like a cone, and it just focuses all the heat in a little area like this, and it's an intense amount of heat, which is great for boiling water, but it's not so good for cooking or distilling. Whereas this will spread the heat over a larger area. So having a good banjo burner, would be a big plus. And those are about 30-40 bucks on Amazon. You can get one of those Gas One. I think one of the company, I think that's what I got. Gas One. And those do well. You put that in a beer keg, you're rocking, man. Put that underneath that right there. 140, 50 proof all day long, man. And water. You get good water out of it. But yeah, it's a good, cheap, easy way. One of the cheapest. Or you get a little pony keg if you didn't want to do 15 gallons. You want to do less, you could get a 7.5. Yeah, it doesn't get rid of chloramine. You can get rid of chlorine pretty easily, but the chloramine is not going to boil off. It's something that's going to be in there and something you're just going to have to deal with, which is why a lot of people, start with a good rainwater and mechanically filter it to get out any leaves, of course, or any larger particles, and then boil it. And or good spring water, best of all. Get you some good spring water and just boil it. Make sure you got any giardia or anything in there that you can kill off, and probably be the best. That way you'll have all those good minerals in there. Whereas if you do like a reverse osmosis, it's going to strip everything out of it. So I think either getting a good clean stream probably be the best. Maybe rainwater filtered and boiled would probably be second, and then tap water. I don't know, down there. Yeah, carbon filter. I don't think it'll take out chloramine. Yeah, reverse osmosis does though. I'm pretty sure. No problem, brother. Now, I will say, if you're going to use it for distilling water, you might want to run some alcohol through it first to clean it out, right? So, just saying, it's if you want to make sure it's good and sanitary to make good, clean water, you probably should run some alcohol through it first, right? What's going on, brother? Good to see you. We're just sitting here drinking a few, talking shine. Yeah, they've got a lot of like what do they call these mobile home filters that can connect to a garden hose, and they do a real good job. But I'm not sure. Let me see if they remove chloramine. I'm still thinking that I'm pretty sure that reverse osmosis will. Yes, let's see. Activated carbon filters can remove chloramine, but standard carbon filters often are ineffective. Effective removal requires specific high quality catalytic carbon. So you need catalytic carbon to break down the chloramine bond. Performance depends heavily on slow water flow rate. So, yeah, if you put it on a garden hose and crank it up, it's probably not going to work to allow sufficient contact time. Making catalytic carbon or specialized carbon blocks the best option, other than reverse osmosis, of course. And it's slow too, RO. Yeah, the refrigerator or the mobile home types that permit fast flow don't work well. So yeah, I'd say the high flow stuff is probably not going to be as effective as something that's catalytic carbon. That's good. I like it. Damn, I'm just getting to your sassafras comment. Lord, I'm so far behind. 20 minutes. I'm always behind. Run the mash with Fruity Pebbles. Yeah, you can just pick up where you left off. Yeah, so yeah, just pick up, just cut the heat off, or it cut itself off. Yeah, you can pick right back up where you left off. Now, again, once you reheat it, you may have a little bit of much lower amounts of heads come off first, but tiny amount because we found that it'll run throughout. But yeah, you can always pick back up where you left off, or you can just dump it all back in there and run it again. But I'd just save what you got and strip the rest off. And if you got a good flavor, it's fine. And if you don't, just proof it down and run it. Proof it down with some water and run it again. No problem, brother. I'm sorry I'm so far behind. Yeah, I'm not sure. It may be something that if somebody were maybe convicted of some alcohol offense, drunk driving or something, they might restrict them from drinking or make them go to AI and make them get tested. So they might prohibit them. That's what I was thinking, something along that line. That's right. Maybe not anymore. Yeah, you'll be fine. That's why a lot of people go on electric. You know, it happens to all of us that run propane. You know, it's going to happen no matter how well you try to have two bottles going and saved. And there, you know, oh, I thought for sure that other bottle had some propane in it. Damn it. You know, it's going to happen. So a lot of people go into electric and they're pretty happy with it. I'm going to try. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. You still have to use your amylase. Yeah. So if you're going to use a high temp with them, Sparger, you know, like a high temp amylase to break down the starches, like if you were like bran flakes, you know, those have been gelatinized, or wheat flakes or corn flakes. Let's just go with corn flakes because that's a cereal that's been rolled, steam rolled and gelatinized. So you break up your corn flakes. Now I'm not talking about the frosted corn flakes, right? Just the regular corn flake cereal. So you're right. It's been gelatinized, so you don't have to heat it up. But if you want to use the amylase and you want to use the starches from the grain itself, you're going to have to heat it up to the temperature that you can use the amylase at. So if it's a high temp, you're going to have to go up to 185. You just don't have to cook it beyond that temperature. Or if you're going to use like the powdered alpha amylase, you just get the 150, 155 range, and then you can add that to get it activated and working right within its range. So, yeah, that would be the only temperature requirement that you would have to cook wise. You wouldn't have to cook it at all, but yeah, just bring it up to temp that your amylase if you wanted to use those starches. But yeah, you're right. Most of the cereal grains have been gelatinized like that. Yeah, the 18.5 gallon bever is a good start, or a keg, 15-gallon keg, 18-gallon bever. It's a great start. Couple $100, either way to get it, to where you want it. It's going to be about a couple hundred, couple 250 to get the keg where you want it, or to get the bever, shipped in. So either way, you got a pretty good setup for that. For 250, you're not going to get much copper. You're not going to get a good copper still for that. So it's what you want, what you can afford. Yeah, the maltodextrin. Yeah, yeah, but like a cornflakes, I don't think that's got any malts in it. But yeah, some of them do. Yeah, I generally don't do a lot of that type grain. I do, if I'm going to do flake, I do flake corn, like a yellow dent flake corn. But yeah, there's a lot of good cereals. Bran flakes are good too. They're good. They're sweet. It's a wheat, and it's also a great nutrient for your yeast as well. But yeah, there's malted cereals are also good for you know uh, yeast food. Definitely a good yeast nutrient. You fine, brother. Right, right, and either you can do the sugar or convert the starches. Yeah, either way, get those sugar smacks or frosted flakes instead of just regular flakes, and you don't have to worry about it. But absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've done cereal, and it's if you can get some that's there's a lot of places, man, and a lot of grocery stores. If you're not too ashamed to dumpster dive, man, you'd be surprised at all the shit that you can get out of a dumpster that gets thrown away. And cereal, once it gets beyond its best by date, they can't sell it anymore, right? So expiration date, so they throw all that shit away or give it away, and most often they'll throw it away because they don't want to give it away and somebody gets sick and sue them. So most of their attorneys and their corporate, especially the big ones, uh, tell them throw it away. And you go out in that dumpster, man, you can load up sometimes. Not too proud to, but there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of waste. We waste a lot of food in America. But yeah, I have. For those that are asking, yep, I have. There's a lot of good shit people get thrown away, man. I mean, I don't now, but when I was younger, hell yeah, man. I didn't do it for food, but you know, there's a lot of good stuff that gets thrown away. And I mean, you see it a lot these days too. There's a lot of people that post the stuff that they find in these dumpsters. And I mean, there's like boxes and boxes of tennis shoes that are perfectly fine. And why do they throw them away? I mean, why in the hell are they throwing all these shoes away or, all these clothes away or all kinds of stuff? They're just throwing all kinds of stuff when you just scratch it. I don't even know. I mean, maybe some of these people are staging this shit, just getting some stuff from Goodwill and throwing it in the damn dumpster and say, "Oh, look at the good stuff they're throwing in this brand new shirt." I don't know, but it's like, man, it's crazy. Boxes of shoes and all kinds of good stuff, man, that they're throwing away, and just I don't know. Yeah, might have aluminum in there or something. I don't know what they put in the atmosphere these days. There's a lot of speculation. I don't know. I tell you what, that blackberry brandy's good stuff. Oh, Wes Sandman makes some pretty good blackberry brandy too. Yeah, it is nice setup. Yeah, that's the problem with it though. It will take a little longer to heat up, and that the plate that you were talking about that you heat up that you put in between the burner and that takes a lot more energy to heat that plate up and then to pass through that plate into it. So I can't recommend getting that banjo burner enough because I'd say within 6 months that banjo burner will pay for itself with just the amount of propane that you'll save from not having to have that diffuser plate. Yeah, yeah, it'd be nice. Or if you got a house that's plumb for gas, you know, and you got a grill out there that's plumbed for the house gas, um, you never know. Might just run a little burner to that. I know when I moved in here, there was a pool heater, and the daggone guy that I bought the house from didn't blow all the water out of it, and cracked the daggone heat exchanger in it. It was stainless, and you could make a moonshine still out of one of those things, man. Just slow down the flow, but it was just basically pump it in, and it had a lot of tubes going back and forth over top of gas, gas heat. So I'm sure you could make one from it, but yeah. But yeah, you could plumb your own. That was using the house gas, so you might have to make some adjustments to it and adjust the air mix ratio, and the pressure. You might have to deal with a little pressure reducer, but you definitely could save some money if you used house gas. But electric, a lot of people just go on electric, and that's probably the simplest. Well, at least you know how long it takes 14 gallons to heat up, but I wouldn't run any less than 15 in that 55. I'd say 45, 15 to 45, somewhere in that range. But let me know about how long it takes you to heat up the 45 on that. I'd be interested to know. Once you get your burner, setting up on blocks is fine. That's how I do mine. And then just put your burner on a block itself. The others setting up higher on a block, and this half block on the burner. I just slide mine underneath too. And you can raise it up and down with bricks if you need to. But let me know how long it takes to heat up the 45. I'd be curious to know. I know it's going to be a little malto meal. Yep. It's going to be probably a little less or a little more time than what a copper. Copper does pretty good. Yeah, always clean your mesh, and try not to use too much peroxide. But if it gets really caked on and really bad, sometimes you have to. But I just use the citric acid in the water. But if it gets really bad and it starts corroding on you and getting green, then you can try that hydrogen peroxide and a few times. And then after that, it just gets hard to keep clean. It's time just to roll out some more mesh. That's the beauty of it. And you just recycle that old, just throw it in the recycler and they'll take it. I'd go with regular, 2.5 pounds per gallon, just like any other grain. Same with cereal crushed up. It'll be, pretty much the same. Flaked corn flakes, sugar smacks, Yeah, a couple, 2.5 pounds per gallon. Just the same. Oh, you talking about to use it as a nutrient? Now, Raisin Bran will give you an extra benefit of the raisins for mouthfeel and a little bit of flavor that the raisins will give, but you're not going to get much nutritional value out of the raisins. It will some because there's some supplemental things that are in there that will help for sure, but it's not going to get yan and fan from those raisins. But you will get plenty of yan and fan from those bran flakes and just it's probably, I don't know, cup wise, I would say ground it up fine, real finely. And I would say, probably 1 cup would feed probably easily a good 20 or 30 gallon mash easy. So maybe for 50 gallons, maybe, couple cups are definitely, crushed up. A box is probably going to be close to probably maybe 4 cups, wouldn't you guess? 16-ounce box. But yeah, if you're using it out as a nutrient, I'd say for a 50 gallon, I don't know how many cups would a box be once they were crushed up fine. Um, but I'd say a box would for nutrients would be okay. But yeah, if you're wanting to mash and convert the cereal, then I would say, yeah, 2 pounds per gallon at least. They do, man. They put out all kinds of good stuff, man. And I've seen videos of these people. They make a living going around just, not necessarily food stores because it gets pretty nasty. But a lot of times, like the big stores, they'll have big, huge, dumpsters that they put it all in. And, a lot of times it's just all boxes of stuff that are, there might be some meat on one side or something else, or bad vegetables or fruits, and a lot of times stuff will be in boxes and packaged in plastic and stuff still. So, if you don't mind getting a little bit dirty, because I've asked quite a few of them if they would give me some of their leftover stuff, and a lot of them were like, we would, but we give it to Goodwill and places like that. Not Goodwill, but I mean the soup kitchens and places like that, and to help feed people when it just starts to go bad and get bad. So we try to give it away before that point in time. So I'm like, well, I definitely don't want to take away from, hungry people getting their stuff. So I generally back off of that, but I definitely would go through their garbage to see if they're telling me the truth. It's definitely a win-win. 7 to 12 cups. Now I wonder if that's chopped up finely or if that's coarse, because there'd be a lot of air, if it was just coarse like that. But if it's finely ground, I wonder. Yeah, density, right? Might have to go with weight. How many? See if yeah, see if we can get. Be pretty interesting to find out how many ground up, finely ground cups you would get. Let's see how many cups per ounce is. So one fluid, that's a fluid ounce though. So I guess if it were really chopped up finely, it'd be close to a fluid, as far as just the space in between them. I don't know. So 2 ounces would be about a quarter cup. So 4 ounces would be close to a cup. So there'd be about four. Yeah, I'm guessing, just roughly guessing, maybe 4 to 6 cups per 16-ounce box if it were just finely powdered. That's the way you want to grind it up to almost a powder. Yeah, flour would be a good comparison. How much does flour weigh per cup? Flour's probably be how much does cornmeal? Because it'd be about the same as the cornmeal. 1 cup of cornmeal is about 4 to 5 ounces. So a 16 ounce would be about 4. So yeah, about 4 cups. Yeah, that'd be about right. Yeah, 4 or 5 cups. If you ground it up as coarse as like a cornmeal consistency, that'd be about right. Right. The smaller it gets, the more you get because there's less air between them. That's why I'm thinking if you grind it up fine, and that's really the way you'd want to do it for nutrients and to help convert, right? So, yeah, I'd say you get 4 cups per box. And I'd say for, like I said, 50 gallons, I'd say a box would be good, 4 cups, 25 gallon, a couple of cups. Yeah. But if you wanted to run it, then I'd say 2 pounds per gallon for sure. Oh, JRSP, there you go. But yeah, that's there's a lot of people. I think Phil Billy's done quite a few videos of Fruity Pebbles and Fruit Loops and Frosted Flakes, a lot of different cereals and stuff. And you'd be surprised you can make good liquor with it. And it's you can get that pretty cheaply, and a lot of times free. But yeah, always the free stuff makes the best liquor, right? Seems like it's the best to me. The free fruit makes the best wine, that's for sure. Because it's expensive. I'll tell you what, that daggone watermelon, I'll never do watermelon again. I spent so much on that buying watermelons at regular watermelon prices to make that watermelon brandy for it to turn out so bad. I'll never again. Apple Jacks, that'll work, man. All the cereals are fine, man. There's convertible starches in there other than just the sugar that's in them. I mean, if you wanted to do some conversions, you could, I mean, frosted or not frost, just regular cornflakes make damn good shine. And you can use the amylase on it, convert it, and just the same. Absolutely. What's going on, Frank? When I was scrolling back looking for something else, I just noticed you chiming in there, brother. What's going on, man? Good to see you. Sorry I missed you the first time by. I was trying to get caught up. But like Mr. Sparger said, yeah, you won't have to worry about gelatinizing these cereals when you want to do your conversions. It's already gelatinized for you, especially with the flaked ones. Now the Rice Krispies, I don't know. You probably might have to do a little. Nah, they probably are too. They're puffed rice. See, most all of them, all you have to do is just get them up to temp to add your amylase to. Watermelon vinegar, gross. Yeah, the watermelon, it didn't work out well. It was, I don't know, mine got warm. It was middle of summer, July, when I was fermenting it, and it got hot. It was hot as fuck where it was, and it probably got up to 90, maybe even 100 degrees, and it wasn't. I think if I could have kept it in the 70s, and done it more wine like, it would probably been better, but it got hot and kind of nasty. But I ran it anyway, and it didn't come out well. So that's going to be one of the first things I put my through my new column. I'm going to definitely see if I can fix that, because if I can fix that, I can pretty much fix anything, because it was probably one of the worst shines I've made since I scorched corn when I was a kid. Yeah, it was that bad. It was horrible. It's the worst. It's the worst drip I've seen in decades. I don't like it. But some people there had some okay watermelon. None of it would be what I consider good or great, but there was some that was palatable. Mine wasn't one of them. It wasn't good at all. But I think if I could have done it right and controlled the temperatures, and maybe you had a little better choice of maybe yeast, that I should try a different yeast maybe. But I was in a hurry. It was hot. It was like 3 or 4 weeks before the competition kind of thing, and didn't even have time to esterify it or nothing. You definitely don't want to do that. And I kind of combined several different types of watermelon, where the small green ones that are like a little bit bigger than basketball size, seedless and dark green, those are probably, out of the three that I got, were the best. That I fermented them all separately just to see which one was better. It was sweetest, and it had the best wine. The long, light green, medium green, traditional watermelons, variegated watermelon looking color, seeded, was probably the worst. So, but they had kind of a hybrid that was in between. That was small and round like the dark green ones, but they were still variegated light and lime green and medium green, variegated like the big ones, but it was a seedless hybrid, and it was kind of in between. Um, but yeah, if you can get those dark ones, those are generally best between those three for me. A drunk squirrel, I'm sure there's been a lot of them eat some of my corn mash or corn. They got dumped. Yeah, it's the back. Yeah, it does. It gets soured. It definitely something that it would be much better in a cooler in a cooler ferment for sure. Definitely, Mike. No, but I did see on Facebook something I saw. It's funny as hell. This dude rigged him up a little catapult, and I guess he was getting tired of the squirrels eating all the corn that he's wanting to feed the birds with. He's getting in the bird feeder. So he rigged up this little catapult, and this squirrel got up on it and is standing on it, and this thing goes bing, and it slings this damn squirrel about 30, 40 feet, and it lands in a tree. It was funny as shit. I'd love to do something like that. The things that make us old men laugh and entertain us, we pretty simple, ain't we? Baby bushes. They take up a lot of area. My grandpa we used to have big gardens and stuff. He had a big huge river bank, and we used to grow all kinds of stuff down there. I remember clearing it out, man. I look back at my grandpa, and he was about my age when we cleared out all that river bank, and he out there working his ass off, man. And I'm thinking, man, I don't think I could work like he did right now. And he worked his ass off out there, man. He was old school. He was an ex coal miner and oil prospector and geologist, and did a lot of things. He ended up buying a couple car washes in his retirement and living on that. In a liquor store. He bought a liquor store. Google twirl a squirrel, huh? I like that squirrel launcher, man. That's funny as shit. Yeah, you gotta watch out, man. Those squirrels get fierce, and I tell you what, them coons will kill a cat too. I've lost cats to coons here. And I've got one coon coming up eating my damn outdoor cat's food. I'm getting ready to send him to coon Hades. The grilled squirrel. Oh yeah, they showed. I can't remember what the fruit was. There's a fruit in. I'm sure we've talked about it on here before, but there's a fruit in Africa that all the animals will come eat the fruit every year about the time they start dropping, and I guess this particular fruit has developed a lot of natural wild yeast over the years, and breaks down the fruit pretty readily. And actually, a while back when we talked about it before, there was a guy from Africa on here. It's interesting how we get people from Turkey, Africa, all over the world on here. But there was a dude from Africa, and he was familiar with it, and he knew the tree. And I can't remember, but he remembered when I said that, and he mentioned the tree and stuff. And but these animals, man, they come there and they'll eat that fruit and get drunk as shit, man. They get silly. It's funny as shit to watch the videos, but I have to Google it because I can't stand when I can't remember shit like that, man, in my mind. It's called the marula tree. Yep. Why can't I ever remember it? Marula. Marula. But yeah, they're saying it's a myth that the animals would need to consume unrealistic amounts to get intoxicated. That's bullshit. Yeah, hey, I don't believe you because I know how fruit can get. Marula fruit. There's Lisa on the ball. But yeah, those fruits get quite fermented. I mean, they're like beer. It's not like whiskey fermented, you know. And of course, we know it takes distilling to get it to that level, but they're like a wine and a beer. You know, they get to the point where the wild yeast stops, and you know, it's going to be 6, 8, 10% alcohol. You know, in the fruit. They ferment right there in the fruit, just like they would anywhere else. You know, in a carboy or on the ground inside the peel. But yeah, they it'd be like beer, you know. Yeah. But you know, I didn't know that you can't just grow any fruit. Like I'm sure there's laws that would not permit you from ordering a marula fruit tree and planting it here in the United States, you know. Are they? A marula liquor? Cool. Mango shines, awesome. In fact, the John Bent's that did man, something in mango combo. What was that? Mango habanero. As Philbilly did that. Benson's Philbilly did a mango habanero moonshine. That was real good. Here we go. John Bence, he did too. I knew it. Let me see what it says here. Yeah, John Bence did one with mango as well. But Philbilly, the one I was thinking of was Philbilly's mango habanero. And still not going to let me post those after this long, huh? Damn, Facebook, you putting the hurt on me, man. All right. Nope, still not. They suck. That sucks. Do better, Facebook. I was Joe Rogan, you'd let me post it in every freaking group on Facebook, but no. Jalapeno mango, yeah. You just got the notice on YouTube? Damn, bro. That's slacking, ain't you? On YouTube or Facebook? I can see Facebook. I can't help you with that, brother. I have no idea about that fruit. You know, somebody's asking me about prickly pear. They was out in Arizona and driving around and saw a bunch of prickly pear. And I guess that'd make a pretty good shine. I've never done it. I've never had that much. But there is prickly pear liquor. So obviously a lot of people do it. There's a shitload of different options there. So there's vodka, prickly pear vodka. There's a lot of different prickly pear liquors. So yeah, I guess so. Yeah, you could do pretty much any fruit or anything with starch. Yeah, that's what they were posting on there. Prickly pear vodkas too. Are they? Never done a lot of prickly pear. Ran some. The prickly pears. Interesting. Yeah. The old Roger's out there in Arizona visiting his son, and they were cruising around the desert, and they saw all kinds of prickly pears and talking about making some prickly pear shine. Yeah, man, you could. That's about the only thing you can grow in the desert that'll make shine. Then maybe, I don't know, not a lot out there. Yeah, corn is good, man. I like that corn. It's good and cheap. Chayote. I've never even heard of this fruit. What the hell is chayote? I've heard of peyote, but not no chayote. Okay, interesting looking. Ugly ass fruit. Looks like a combination between a cucumber and a green pepper looking thing. I don't know what the hell I think of it. Technically a gourd from the squash family. Often used as a vegetable with the flavor of cucumber and pear. Interesting. Let's see. Doesn't have a very high starch content. Pretty low starch content. In fact, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of starches in it, so it's not something you're going to be able to convert. It's just going to have to go on the natural sugars that it has. Let's see what this sugar content is. Per 100 grams. 1.66 to 1.7. So that will put it where on the chart? Pretty low down there with an avocado. So it's not got a lot of fruit per 100 grams. That's what I based it on. So it's less than a lemon. So it's basically just going to be for flavor. Yeah, it's interesting. So it's probably good. Pear. It's gonna if it has a pear, it's gonna be very delicate flavored though. Cucumber pear, kind of a delicate flavor to carry over in distillation. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of flavor it carried over and what it tasted like for sure. Yeah, oh yeah. Anyway, back to we had the garden, but he would grow melons and cantaloupe and a lot of different cantaloupes and honeydews and all that. And we did some watermelon as well. And man, they vine out. And they really take up a large area where the vines, so you can kind of plant them and let them just kind of grow into each other and grow into a patch. But it if you grow them individually, they do kind of stretch out. So you might have to train them, if you wanted to kind of spiral or something. If you wanted to Miyagi one, but they take up a little bit of room. Mountain Dew Shine. Well, that's what Mountain Dew was originally made for. It was to mix with moonshine and to market it to a bunch of hillbillies. That's what they originally made Mountain Dew for. Yeah, yeah. Bananas have starch. We were talking about that earlier, Clint. When they're young, they definitely have a lot more, but they convert themselves. They got a lot of amylase in them, so they end up converting themselves to sugar by the time they get really matured. And if they get black, almost dark, once they get real dark like that, there's hardly any starch left, and it's just all sugars. And pretty interesting. Chicken. Yeah, I think Philby did some pop syrup. I think he just got the syrup. I'm not sure if he did the whole pop and all. I think he just got one of those things of syrup and did something with that. Pretty interesting. All right, y'all. It's getting after 11. And I'm caught up finally. Yeah, I'd say corn syrup probably for sure. Or yeah, high fructose corn syrup. HFCS. I think they abbreviate it. But yeah, it's good. Well, I say I drink his diet stuff though. I like his Baja pretty good. But yeah, I don't think it won't tell me what the sweetener is on this. But yeah, I'd say they use high fructose corn syrup. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning in. We're gonna call her a night. Getting a little tired. So I guess the next time will be Tuesday the 14th. So I'll probably be cutting that short too, unless I get my taxes done, because I'm trying to get my taxes done so this next Wednesday I can go back to Keeneland and do some gambling. If not, I'm gonna be working on them all day on the 15th as they're due that night. And I just have to transfer them, but it takes a little time for me to do them. They're complicated. Nothing's easy. But thanks everybody for tuning in. Yeah, we'll see you Alchemist Tuesday. Until then, I hope everybody got their questions answered. And we never did get to hear back from Jason what happened with his and what the taste. I'm guessing probably cuts. So maybe next time we can talk about cuts and trying to make better cuts, because usually when somebody shines tasting the same and all bad, it's either running too hard, stripping and getting a lot of smearing, or not making decent cuts, and or sometimes with these smaller steels it's really tough too. So probably a combination of some of that. So maybe we can talk to him again and try to find out what's going on, what kind of mash he's got, and what issues are there. And thanks for all the new people tuning in tonight. Glad you tuned in. We're here on every Tuesday and Saturday Eastern Standard Time at 8. So 8 Eastern. I don't know what that'd be in Turkey, but uh, good to hear from people all over the world. Definitely tune in next time and let us know. I know there's a lot of people listen to it that don't get a chance to listen to it live. If you can, sometime jump in and say howdy. We'd love to hear from you. So, but until Tuesday, everybody have a great weekend. We will see you all in. Until then, peace out. Have a great weekend. See y'all Tuesday.